January 2026. Caracas was locked behind a $2 billion Russian shield, with missile batteries primed to annihilate intruders 50 miles away, and guards armored to render standard weapons useless. Delta Force confronted certain death unless every secret tool worked perfectly. The arsenal that changed modern warfare did not officially exist, and one malfunction meant global catastrophe. So what let them slip through the impossible and vanish before Venezuela knew they had come? Zero footprint is not a catchphrase. It is a philosophy built on the idea that the true measure of success is leaving no shadow behind, no radar spike, no telltale echo, not even a shell casing for hostile investigators to find. One retired Joint Special Operations Command planner put it this way: if the enemy knows you came, you failed. If the world knows you came, you never should have tried. This doctrine was born from the hard lessons of past raids, where brute force left a trail for adversaries to follow and for diplomats to explain. The planning language for Operation Absolute Resolve revolved around silence, not destruction. Every asset, every movement, every trigger pull was weighed against the risk of exposure. The operators accepted that a single malfunction, a jammed door, a dropped magazine, a stray radio signal, could mean not just mission failure, but global disaster. There would be no cavalry, no plausible deniability, and no margin for error. The team orders were simple to read but nearly impossible to execute. Neutralize the target, extract him alive, and vanish before the defenders or the world could react. That meant operating inside a hostile capital, under the nose of a multi-billion-dollar air defense network, without leaving a digital or physical trace. It meant trusting lives to gear so secret that even the men using it had trained for years without ever seeing the final versions. Every decision, from the flight path to the choice of ammunition, was filtered through the question, will this make us visible? If the answer was yes, it was discarded. In this world, silence is more than golden. It is survival. The only acceptable outcome is a ghost story told by those left behind, piecing together what happened from the absence of evidence. The next step is understanding how the tools themselves made this doctrine real. Each piece of hardware was not just a weapon, but a promise: work perfectly, or everyone pays the price. Caracas was never meant to be breached. The Venezuelan government spent years and billions of dollars transforming the capital into a fortress. S-300 surface-to-air missile systems, acquired at a cost nearing $2 billion, formed a perimeter around the city. Each battery could track and engage aircraft more than 50 miles out, their radars sweeping the skies for any sign of intrusion. Even before helicopter rotors could disturb the humid night air, their presence would register as a blip on a screen deep inside a military bunker. The city itself added another layer of defense. Caracas sprawls across a basin, boxed in by steep hills and tangled with concrete, glass, and jungle. The terrain offers no straight approach, only winding corridors flanked by high-rises and shanty towns. These urban canyons swallow sound and sight, making it impossible to predict where a threat might emerge. Any outsider moving through this maze would find themselves exposed from every angle, with no cover and no escape route. The maze favored the defender. Inside the presidential palace, the threat only intensified. Maduro's security detail operated with the expectation of a direct assault. Guards wore Russian-made body armor rated to stop high-velocity rifle rounds, the kind of protection designed for war zones, not ceremonial duty. Standard NATO ammunition, the backbone of most Western forces, would flatten against these plates at close range. Every corridor, every stairwell, was a potential choke point manned by men trained to fight until the last round. The palace was layered for annihilation. The defenses were not just physical, they were psychological. The knowledge that any attack would trigger an immediate and overwhelming response hung over the operation. Failure meant more than casualties. It risked a diplomatic crisis with Russia, China, and every state watching for American overreach. Penetrating this kill zone required more than courage. It demanded tools and tactics built to bypass each layer of security without setting off alarms. Only a handful of units on Earth could even attempt it. For Delta Force, the challenge was clear. Defeat a shield worth $2 billion, outmaneuver a city designed to trap them, and neutralize guards prepared for the worst, all without leaving a trace. Every second above hostile ground, survival depended on the aircraft and the armor protecting the men inside. The Night Stalkers of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment did not fly standard helicopters for this mission. Their MH-60M platforms had been reworked for one purpose: to slip past the world's most advanced air defense network without a trace. The changes started with the skin. Angular chine lines along the fuselage broke up radar reflection, scattering signals away from Venezuelan S-300 arrays searching for the faintest hint of movement. Specialized hubcap-like covers over the main rotor assemblies shielded the most radar-visible components, a lesson borrowed from decades of stealth aircraft design. Even the tail rotor, normally a weak point, was shrouded to muffle both radar and acoustic signatures. These modifications came at a cost. Every pound of radar-absorbent material or composite fairing meant less room for fuel, less margin for error. The trade-off was deliberate. Range and payload were sacrificed for the single advantage of near invisibility. The pilots flew nap of the earth, hugging the contours of the Venezuelan hills, trusting that the combination of terrain masking and reduced radar cross-section would keep them below the S-300's engagement envelope. The route was rehearsed until it became muscle memory. Deviate by even 100 feet and the entire mission could be lost to a single radar ping. Inside the cockpit, the threat of being shot down was never theoretical. There would be no rescue team if a helicopter went down inside Caracas. That reality shaped every piece of personal protection the crews wore. Hard suit. Aircrew armor was not just an afterthought. Kevlar and boron carbide ceramic plates were sewn directly into flight suits, covering vital organs without the bulk of traditional body armor. The goal was to give pilots and crew a fighting chance in the event of a crash or ground engagement, without restricting movement or adding weight that could compromise the helicopter's stealth profile. The Night Stalkers accepted that survivability depended less on firepower and more on escaping detection altogether. The aircraft were stripped of anything that might betray their presence: external stores, door guns, even non-essential electronics. Only the essentials remained. The pilots relied on their training, the precision of their flight path, and the engineered silence of their machines. In the darkness above Caracas, every element of the platform, every angle, every seam, every stitch of armor was chosen for one reason: to keep the team alive long enough to reach the target and vanish before anyone could react. Silence in close quarters demands more than discipline. It demands hardware that erases the line between presence and absence. For Delta Force operators threading palace corridors, the Sig Sauer LVAW known as the Badger became the tool of choice. Its 5.5-inch barrel fires 300 blackout subsonic rounds, each shot registering a report no louder than a nail gun. The suppressor is not an accessory, it is the heart of the system. This configuration lets an operator neutralize a threat 3 rooms away without alerting guards on the next floor. In confined spaces, the LVAW's compact frame and low recoil keep muzzle rise in check, allowing accurate follow-up shots even under stress. The ammunition delivers the stopping power of an AK-47 at close range, but without the concussive blast that would disorient the shooter or betray the team. XM7. When the mission called for defeating body armor, subtlety gave way to raw physics. The XM7 rifle, chambered for the new 6.8 by 51mm cartridge, was engineered from the ground up to punch through level 4 ceramic plates, the same kind protecting Maduro's security detail. Each round leaves the barrel at pressures that would destroy a legacy M4, driving a tungsten-tipped projectile designed to defeat armor, car doors, and makeshift barricades. The trade-offs are clear. Heavier recoil and fewer rounds in the magazine are acceptable sacrifices when the guarantee is that no defender's vest will stop the shot. In Overwatch positions, the XM7 gave perimeter teams the reach to stop an armored response force before it reached the palace, while inside it provided the confidence to breach rooms knowing that cover and armor offered no sanctuary. Transition weapons mattered just as much. The Glock 19X, fitted with compensators and red dot sights, served as the sidearm for every operator. In the chaos of a close-quarters fight, When a carbine ran dry or a guard closed to grappling range, the pistol's fast sight acquisition and manageable recoil made the difference between life and death. The 19x magazine capacity and reliability under adverse conditions kept operators in the fight when seconds decided the outcome. Quiet. Every weapon in the arsenal was chosen not just for what it could do, but for how quietly and efficiently it could do it. Suppressed carbines enabled silent takedowns, advanced rifles handled armored threats, and pistols covered unpredictable moments when plans dissolved into hand-to-hand struggle. In the palace's pitch-black labyrinth, these tools were not just instruments of violence. They were the guarantee that the team could move, strike, and disappear without leaving a sound behind. Vision and intelligence, not brute force, closed the final gaps in the palace assault. The GPNVG-18 panoramic night vision goggles became the operator's eyes in a world engineered for darkness. Unlike standard two-tube goggles that trap users in a tunnel, the GPNVG-18 delivered a 97-degree field of view, almost double the peripheral awareness of legacy systems. White phosphor image intensifiers sharpened every detail, turning pitch-black corridors into crisp grayscale landscapes where movement, cover, and threat stood out in stark relief. In the blackout, defenders could see nothing, and operators could see everything. Reconnaissance reached a new scale with the Black Hornet 4 nano drone. Each drone weighed less than a smartphone and disappeared into a vest pouch. Launched from a gloved hand, it slipped through ventilation grates and under door frames, streaming thermal imagery back to the team for up to 25 minutes on a single charge. Operators watched on wrist displays as the drone mapped guard positions, revealed heat signatures behind walls, and traced the layout of rooms before anyone breached a door. One drone technician said, "You do not just see the enemy, you see the air they are breathing." When it came time to breach, the M84 stun grenade served as the silent partner. Pull the pin, toss it in, and the device detonated with a 170 decibel blast, louder than a jet engine at takeoff, paired with a magnesium flash that overloaded human senses for about 5 seconds. That window was all the operators needed to cross a threshold, identify threats, and act before defenders could recover. The M84 did not just clear rooms, it bought time, focus, and the margin for error that technology alone could not guarantee. The team had tested the Army's IVAS augmented reality headset, which promised heads-up navigation, real-time drone feeds, and friendly positions projected through walls. But during rehearsals, IVAS battery life failed to keep pace with the operation's demands, and light leaks risked exposing operators in the dark. Most operators left the headsets behind in favor of the analog reliability of the GPNVG-18. The choice reflected a hard lesson. On a mission where a single malfunction could mean disaster, proven gear mattered more than next-generation promises. These tools, night vision, micro-drones, stun devices, and the hard-won wisdom to choose reliability over novelty, completed the 9-node arsenal. They turned the palace's darkness from a liability into an advantage and gave the team the edge needed to move unseen, strike without warning, and disappear before defenders could even process the threat. Caracas plunged into darkness at precisely 2:01 a.m. Every street lamp and security feed flickered out as power vanished across the city. This was not a blackout caused by a storm or a blown transformer. This was a deliberate strike, timed to the second by U.S. cyber operators who had spent weeks mapping the Venezuelan grid. With the city's electronic eyes blinded, the helicopters approached low, their rotors nearly brushing the treetops as they followed the winding valleys leading into the capital. The pilots navigated by memory and silent digital maps, tracing the folds of the terrain to stay beneath the reach of any remaining radar. Inside the cockpits, crews watched for the faintest glimmer of light or movement that might betray a hidden threat. The blackout did not just hide the aircraft, it masked the entire corridor, turning the city's own geography into a shield. Operators on board monitored live feeds from micro-drones already launched ahead, each one slipping through ventilation shafts and alleyways to build a real-time picture of guard positions and obstacles. For a critical window, no alarm sounded and no missiles launched. The only sound was the muted thrum of engines as the team closed in on their target, unseen and unheard in the artificial night. The breach unfolded in silence, broken only by the thunderclap of the M84 and the quick muffled shots that followed. Operators surged through the palace corridors, each movement rehearsed, each action synced to the second. Guards staggered, senses overloaded, their response blunted by that engineered 5-second window. In those moments, the team moved with absolute purpose, clearing rooms, securing the target, and signaling for extraction before defenders could regroup. Above, rotors hovered just long enough for the rooftop exfiltration, the pilots holding steady as the building's upper levels flickered with confusion, but no coordinated resistance. Every operator reached the landing zone in a tight formation, carrying not just their own safety but the mission's entire success. As the last man lifted off, the helicopters vanished into the night, leaving behind only a riddle, a strike so fast and so clean that by the time Venezuelan forces realized what had happened, the Americans were already gone. No alarms chased them. No counterattack found its mark. In less than 3 minutes, the most fortified palace in South America had been breached and emptied, its defenders left staring at empty corridors and darkness. Every advance in stealth and precision rewrites the rules of power. As rivals rush to counter what was once unthinkable, the cycle of innovation and adaptation only accelerates. Today, $2 billion in defenses can vanish to technology the world barely knows exists. The next breakthrough will not just change warfare, it will decide who remains untouchable. How long until the balance tips again? Share your thoughts below.